one of the girls got pregnant by one of the guys, who knows which one, because there could have been 10 a day. And she was 14 years old, goes to get an abortion. Anybody hear about it? Did it get reported?
Never was reported.
14.
And this is a classic example of what we've talked about before. Abortion protects sexually predatory males. Yes. And this is a classic example of that. And it's especially true given that Planned Parenthood and all these other abortion businesses around the country are operating this nationwide pedophile protection racket, which we proved with our Child Predator Project. Right. They are protecting men who rape children. This is a perfect example of it.
Where are the foaming at the mouth, pro-abort, now cows, everybody wanting to protect this girl? How, you know, they should be burning the doors down to protect this girl.
Let me tell you something, Cherie. If law enforcement in that state were to try to do something about that, the people you're talking about would come in and protect the abortion clinic, not the girls.
Sure, and as we saw in Kansas with the good Attorney General Phil Klein, who was simply enforcing the laws that were already written on the books, the abortion industry came after him and threw him out and are now trying to remove his law license.
And spent millions doing it. Millions.
Millions upon millions.
Right. It's unbelievable.
No, they would rather have the abortion industry alive and well than to have your daughter alive and well.
And on the other end of the spectrum, euthanasia and assisted suicide and all that business. There was a man in Norway who had been in a coma, they said, for 23 years. And he would say when he didn't come out of it, but he never was unconscious. He knew everything going on around him for 23 years. And somebody, a doctor there, did a test on his brain just kind of randomly and said it's functioning normally. And they put instruments in front of him. He could do stuff on the computer, talk with the computer and everything. So he would understand everything going on around him. I would I'd like to think that nobody said anything they shouldn't have while he was listening. But anyway, it's he has said, and when I say said, he's typed or whatever he does, via the computer, that now he wants to enjoy his life. It's like a rebirth, and he wants to read and talk with his friends via the computer and enjoy life and let everyone know I'm not dead. But yeah, it's real bad for the supporters of euthanasia and assisted suicide.
When I heard
and all
about that story, obviously the first thing is
Terry Schiavo.
Terry Schiavo.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And
all these, and then, and of course, right after Terry Schiavo was murdered, they had a woman, was it Missouri, that popped up out of a permanent vegetative state. Oh,
it was Western Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to her parents.
But her medical diagnosis was exactly the same, word for word, of what Terry Schiavo's was. Exactly.
You know, years ago, a good friend of mine, Lee Schmucker, was in the hospital in LA Medical Center, and she was in a coma, had been for 2 weeks. And she's a dear friend, and she was blonde. Her and her husband and the pastor and I, we would stand around, and we would do this when she was awake and conscious and make blonde jokes. Well, she comes out of this coma a week later, and she goes, and don't think I didn't hear every one of those jokes. No kidding. So this man here was just simply unable to speak and respond, but he remembered everything. And it makes me wonder what Terry Schiavo was thinking.
And how many others? How many others where they say we're pulling the plug because of quality of life and all that? And gee, he's excited about his quality of life.
Hey, Johnny, I want to bring you in here a minute because I want to tell people just a quick update on some of the MAFA 21 stuff that's going on. It continues to explode. It's unbelievable. To give you an example, let the audience know, we produced 10,000 of the original MAFA 21 DVDs. We thought that would get us through 2 to 3 years worth of sales. We're already out. Wow. We're producing a second edition probably next week because we're almost out. We've got a couple hundred left, but and it's bringing in people that we never had any chance of getting to. People need to go, pro-lifers need to go on the internet and look under the Afrocentric community, the hip-hop community. The largest hip-hop websites in the United States, or in the world, have MAFA 21 on the home page.
In fact, if they go to Living in Black.
Living in Black, right.
They would be guaranteed to see it. The black community, quite frankly, we've been disappointed with pastors.
Oh, absolutely.
You and I have talked about this briefly before. Pastors
let's make sure people understand what we're saying. We started with this mistaken belief that the black pastors would be more courageous than white pastors. What we've now discovered is they're cut from the same cloth. There is no difference. They're the same bunch of cowards in the black church as there are in the white church. So anyway, go ahead.
Now the bold pastors have shown this thing and going full steam with it.
Right.
However, other pastors have done the old, I'm glad God called you to that. Yeah. We're going to be praying for you, brother. You know, and whenever somebody says that, they're not really with you.
No,
they're not with you. And but the pastors that are have been really, really with us. But the people that's been in the community, these have been the people that has been the game changers with Marfa 21. Right. Yeah. Pastor Broden and I went on a radio program, a secular radio program, and went on with Tim Wiggins was the radio host, a black, program and all, and we talked about Marfa 21. And when they showed Marfa 21 in Raleigh, a lot of people came out to see it because they heard us on the radio. And I always remember what one girl said. She said, after listening to that radio program, I went and cried. She said, my daughter thought I was dying because I told my child. She said, and I did it because I thought about aborting her and realized what a mistake.
Also, Johnny, you told me something about your banquet here, and we're running out of time.
Yeah,
I want you to get to that.
And for the banquet, what I did, I brought in somebody who voted for Obama.
This is your annual banquet.
It's called our first annual banquet. We usually do conferences.
Right.
But we decided to do something different. I need some funds right now, so I did a fundraising banquet. It turned out better than any conference I ever had. Good. Simply because I brought in a fellow who had some very strong leftist leaning. Put a Marfa 21 tape in his hand. He's a radio host for his own program. He does studio work for the other. And I was on the radio program, studio engineer, gave it to him. He went home and watched Marfa 21 twice that night. Twice. He called me up. He said, Don, we got to have lunch. We got to have lunch. We got to meet for lunch. That lunch meeting turned into a 3.5-hour meeting.
Wow.
He's watched it a third time since then. So I had him on to be our MC. What it did, because of his personality, our pro-life, quote, fundraising banquet had just as many liberals in there as it did conservatives. We had blacks and he had whites. We had folks that, you would never, ever think would be it. But I tell you what, when everybody walked out that thing, they were all on one accord, especially against Planned Parenthood and especially standing for life.
Good.
Because he had saw that to the point, here's the same fellow. He might be leaning to the left on other issues, but I tell you what, he'll never get Obama's vote again. Obama will never get his vote again, I'll put it that way. And plus, he's coming against health care because it contains abortion stuff. Good. And also because it contains other things that could hurt people in the long run. Right. He's, in other words, taking a look at issues. And to walk into that banquet, and we had a couple of pastors who were very upset with Pastor Stephen Broden was our speaker, so you know how things went. And I remember one of the cleaning ladies that worked at the Healthplex came and talked to me afterwards because she was at the banquet. She said, I want you to understand something. When I heard that pastor speak, and at that banquet tonight, she said, I felt like a person who was just getting saved. She said, have you ever been in a church and the message convicted you?
Right. And
she said, I came under conviction because I voted trying to make history without looking at where it was really taking our nation down. And she said, and that night, we just about sold out our Marfa 21s. Right. And all we did was just show the trailer.
Well, we're seeing this sort of thing repeated all over the country. And we're getting into venues with this message that a year ago, if I'd have said, how do we get into this Afrocentric community? Or how do you get the pro-life message to the guy that you're just talking about, who oversaw your banquet, right? There's no way. Well, but now we have a way.
And it gets tougher than that. One fellow came by to visit me, and he let me know. He says, I kind of represent the gangs, brother. We need to talk with you. We heard about this Marfa 21 thing. So I want to meet with him.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get past you saying hip-hop and knowing about hip-hop.
Well, I didn't know anything, and I didn't know anything about this kind of underground Afrocentric community that's out there, but it's enormous, and it's very well interconnected. They all know each other. They know who the big players are. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but this underground Afrocentric community now, I have recently learned, refers to me as the Caucasian Crusader.
Amen.
So awesome. It's kind of weird.
We need T-shirts.
Yeah, the Caucasian Crusader. But they're out pushing this thing hard and getting it onto black college campuses. And we've got some new things that are right on the horizon. I wish we could talk about them, but we can't right now. This thing it's already exploded. It's about to really explode. There's some real exciting things going on with this Marfa 21 project. Anyway, we're out of time. We'll be right back. Those who defend abortion continue to chant that women have the right to control their bodies and that the unborn child is part of the mother's body. Of course, for that to be true, it would have to also be true that when a woman is pregnant, she has 4 arms, 4 legs, 2 heads, 2 hearts, 2 brains, and so on. And naturally, those numbers increase if she is pregnant with more than 1 baby. It also means that if her unborn child is a boy, for 9 months of her life, this woman has a penis. Obviously, only a moron could suggest something this ignorant. The reality is that the unborn child has its own genetic code, blood type, fingerprints, brain, nervous system.